Instagram and do it. Okay. Hopefully. All right, everyone. Bear with me because Instagram likes to mess with me. Okay. I think I'm good. All right. All right, perfect. Sorry guys, that's going to be super funky for the next couple of weeks. They now you can't stream directly into a Facebook group.
You can't.
Um no, you can't anymore.
Oh,
So not using third party apps. So you can only do it like jumping on Facebook, but that's not
okay.
gonna work. So anyway, it's a whole thing and but fine, whatever, Mark Zuckerberg. I'm up for the challenge. Anyway, welcome to Real Estate Coffee Talk.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. What part of the world are you in?
I'm in the Chicagoland area. So actually that is why I chose this mug because it's my 312 mug, which is getting
Gotta
lost in
put it up.
various.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
312. Got it.
that's a Chicago area code and an
Love
ode
it.
to where I built my real estate career. It's where I started in real estate. I'm not directly in the city anymore, but that's
Yeah. But
where
whatever.
yeah,
Once a city girl,
always.
always a city girl.
Yeah.
Yes. I grew up in New York, so the area code there is 212
Oh,
in Manhattan anyway. But let me tell you, I've only been to Chicago once. I went with a friend, and so I'm half Puerto Rican, so they have I don't even remember the name of the place, but they had a sandwich called a jibarito, and
mm,
it was like fried green plantains or some kind of steak. I would jump on a plane to Chicago again just for that. And she was like, "You gotta try deep dish. You gotta try this." And I
yeah.
was like, "Girl, we're going there again."
We
It
have
was
great food, I will say. I that is one of the things when I travel, I'm like, it's hard to impress it can be hard to impress me.
I know.
We are a little spoiled. We've got some great food here.
When you grow up in a big city or when you, like, live in a big city for a long time, you hate to be a snob when
I
you
know.
move out, but it's just like having access to so much, not just, like, good food, but also, like, a variety of, like,
Right.
diverse all these different types of food.
It's
It's
so
a big
true.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone down here knows, like, New Yorkers I mean, we're kinda snobby. They're like, "Best pizza in Charlotte." We're like, "Doesn't exist."
Yeah, right.
We're so mean. Okay, but anyway, we could be here all day talking about that.
Right.
So, Brittany, tell us a little bit more about you. I know you've been in real estate, but I know you're also in this wellness space, which um I can't wait to talk about. I have so much to say. But tell us a little bit about you and kind of like where you started and what you do.
Yeah, yeah. So, I have been in real estate for just over 12 years, and I actually started my career in marketing. So, I got into real estate marketing, fell in love with the industry, of course, and
Me
then
too.
I moved into sales, and eventually I moved into leadership and agent development. And I'm currently a staff writer at the Close. And at the Close, we write about lead gen, marketing, technology, all the stuff that helps agents be successful and build their businesses. And that's what I'm super passionate about is helping agents really thrive in their careers. So that's also where the wellness stuff comes in. I feel like that's a really missed opportunity in our industry to support agents because we have such a high burnout rate. And I think anyone that's been in this industry long enough knows that you will at some point likely experience burnout. And
Right.
so yeah, all agent support stuff is what I'm really passionate about. And having lived the agent life for many years, I experienced my own burnout. And that's why I educated myself on it, and it's kind of been my passion project to bring it to the industry.
I love this so much. And some people may be stronger than I, but I was burnt out like month one and a half. It's like,
Easy
what?
to be. Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, what is the real estate school? They did not tell me.
I
Listen,
know.
girl, it's so funny looking back because I remember being in real estate school or whatever, and I did marketing all before that. So
Mhm.
like nothing like this.
Yeah.
And I had a little notebook. It sounded so easy. I remember I was like, at that point, that was only like 5 years ago. And the average price point was around 350. And I was like, had in my notebook, okay, so all I have to do is sell like 5 houses a month.
Mhm.
I'm good. And then I got into yeah, exactly. Well, and I think I'm like you and I are like in this way, like we're probably good with people, and um I was like, how can it be? Make a few friends,
Right.
sell a few
Talk
houses.
to people. Yeah. No.
Yes. No, it was, and to have practiced for 12 years, man, that's like it's almost like dog years. You know what I mean? Like that's
It is. It is. I mean, it's crazy because we have such a high dropout rate too within the first 3 to 5 years, and
right.
people talk about that, right? Like if someone is saying, "Oh, I want to get into real estate and I'm really interested in this industry," then you hear people who've been in the industry for a long time say, the first 3 to 5 years are the hardest, and the truth is if you can get past that, usually you do create more longevity for yourself.
Right.
But even past that, if we don't have mechanisms and tools and strategies to continue building our business in a sustainable way, you're
Right.
still going to face that potential dropout rate and that threat of wanting to leave the industry.
Yeah, because you see it in these big agent Facebook groups, people who are like have been in this 10, 12 years. And, I think that the 2020, 2021 time was hard in a different way. It was just like demanding whatever.
Mhm.
Now it's hard in what we're facing now, right? So I've seen people I've been in it actually makes me feel better about myself because they've been in it for a long time and they're like, is it me? Like this is
I know.
hard. This is getting worse.
Yeah, and
So
what people are
yeah.
used to too is, well, there's methods that have worked for people and then times change, and I know we'll get into all this, but it's definitely our industry is it ebbs and flows in every way possible.
Right, right. That's exactly what I'm noticing, which requires you to be on top of your game, like
Yes,
on a mental level, right? So,
right.
okay. So you've been in this a while, like you've seen a lot.
Mhm.
So with real estate, if you've been in it for any length of time, it's like a stressful job and it had just like you said, like ebbs and flows as far as what you do, but also I think emotionally, like one day, not even one day, twice in one day, you could be having the highest high. Oh my God, I got my first time buyers under contract. This is
Mhm.
great. They've been looking for a while. And then later on that day, an appraisal will come in $50,000 low, right?
Right.
So what have you noticed, like, over your time about how agents and these personalities deal with the stresses of the job?
Yeah, I've seen multiple different ends. It's like there are agents that incorporate what they consider wellness and they try, right? And then there's agents
Right.
that don't at all. And I've met agents all over the country in different markets, and they have different things going on and there are different stressors. But the one thing that I have noticed the most is that people either don't know what to do to incorporate, or they'll say like, well, yeah, I work out. And as we know, of course, working out
Yeah.
is an amazing stress reliever. And the thing I say to that is, well, that's one area of self-care. That's one,
Right.
and look, I didn't, before I really dove into burnout prevention and wellness for myself and my career, I didn't realize that I was so depleted in so many other areas that being physically active may have still left me depleted, right? Because maybe that's not what I
Right.
did.
Yeah.
So I find that the coping mechanisms for agents, it can be very different. It's limited. And I also feel like sometimes people, coping mechanisms I've found it can be like doubling down on work. It can be withdrawing and thinking,
Yeah.
not even realizing it's almost like a subconscious decision to double down or to withdraw. Or honestly, it can be drinking, it can be eating sweets, which those things can give a temporary boost, of they might feel a little pick me up or something. And that's something that people have often talked about in the industry as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Talked to friends of mine who, when I started really talking about this more in the industry, one of my girlfriends, and she's an agent and has been in the industry a while, she's like, I caught myself like not eating throughout the day living off of coffee, which we love, but then
Cheers, girl.
here I am stopping at Starbucks for another coffee and getting a sweet tea.
Yeah.
And now that's giving me a fake boost, but then later you're crashing, right? Because you're not properly fueling yourself.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it's those coping mechanisms that are subconscious that I notice that we operate in that so much more frequently than conscious and intentional decisions to really operate our business in the right way.
Right, and they almost become like, because I've seen what you're seeing. I mean, I've seen plenty of like, "Oh my god, this client, I need a drink." And there's nothing wrong with having a drink,
Right.
but, I've also so Kathleen Rock said, "Oh gosh, guilty." Yeah, like,
Right.
so, like, I've seen in my own life, let's say as an agent, it would definitely be like, "Oh my god," I would call my husband like, "Please make me a chocolate martini," because like,
Yeah.
but you're right. Like if you end up relying on them, you're not really fixing anything. And
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know what you think about this part, right? But do you think that different personalities and stuff can find different? That maybe like it's not a one size fits all thing, right? So I don't wanna be, vulgar, but, like, when I go into the gym, I always tell people it's like going to, like, the gynecologist, right? Like, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I got it out of the way.
Right.
But my sister's, like, a CrossFit, and she's like, "Oh my god, I get, like, a high," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get that."
Right.
But I do when I, like, go out with friends and, like, intentional about social and stuff. So you think there's different kind of strokes for different folks?
100%. And I always tell people that this is such an individualized approach, just like your business plan. There are
Right,
tried and true things. There is a formula, right, of like an outline, so to speak. There are things we need to do for our business, and there are things we need to do for our self care. But what we plug into those pockets are different for everyone. So
right,
that also, though, changes for each individual as the year goes on. So, like, just like a business plan, what you do during the holidays is going to be different than what you do during the busy season. So, with your wellness needs, that also will change throughout the year. What you need as a stress reliever around the holidays is going to be different in the spring or summer or whatever it may be. So, not only is it individual to the person, it's individual to your business and throughout the year. And so, I try and like help people understand to drill down into the high level overview of yes, this is what we need. And then what do you need personally? And then throughout the year, revisit this and start to adjust as you see
as needed,
needed.
kinda.
Yeah.
I love that because then it doesn't become yet another commitment. It almost becomes like a vitamin,
Yes.
like,
Yeah, I think people get nervous adding things, but I
yeah,
don't want people to feel like they're adding in. This should just be like you're getting your morning coffee. That could be a form of self-care. It
right.
is taking a minute to slow down and just enjoy that, even if it's a couple minutes of just kind of like, okay, I'm taking a breath before I start my day. I'm having a little coffee. Now I'm going to get going.
Yeah.
That is a form of self-care. And so incorporating these things just as we would like to sit down and check our emails first thing, right? Like, let me get my day in order. It should become a flow rather than a to-do list.
Right, right, makes sense. And going, like, off on a little bit of a tangent here, like, you know, what are ways like, I guess, how do you counsel agents as far as, like, how do boundaries come into play here, right? Because that is what really more than the stress of the transactions, where I struggled the most was boundaries, feeling like I was always on,
Yep.
right? So how do you think that plays into it?
I mean, one of my biggest gripes in this industry, and I'll say this every chance I get, I will single-handedly take away the marketing phrase, "I'm available 24/7." That is our first problem. I remember being early in my career seeing agents market themselves as available 24/7, and every time I'm in a group with agents, and I'm talking about this, I always ask, like, "If it's not you, do you know someone?" And
Right.
everyone's always like, "Oh, yeah, that's a pretty common thing in this industry." And I'm like, 1, not only is it false advertising, It just is.
Right.
We're
'Cause
not
you have
robots.
to
It's
sleep.
it's physically
Yeah.
impossible. So, I mean, at the most, you could be available, like, maybe 27.
Yeah.
Like, you need something. So, it's it not only sets up false advertising for yourself and your business,
Right.
false expectations,
That's exactly
and
it.
then it is eliminating your ability to set boundaries. So,
Yes.
instead of just making yourself a free for all, constantly available every moment of the day, operate as a real business, right? Like our
Yeah.
business partners, those of us that work with attorneys, because I know not every state is an attorney state,
Yeah.
but the attorneys, the lenders, the home inspectors, all of our partners work within business hours, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why are
Whatever those are to their business.
their
Yeah.
business, right? They're
Yeah.
definitely not all hours of the day. Now, granted, there will always be times that we have deals that require more,
Of
or we're going to need to be a little bit quicker in something, right? Negotiations are happening, you have to be on it. But
Right.
generally speaking, setting business hours for yourself doesn't mean that you can't flex those hours, but having that and sticking to it and setting the expectation with your client up front and say, I'm excited to work with you. Here's how I work. How do you work? Let's try and fit this in. Like, I will definitely get back to you in a timely manner. I also take priority with my family. If you have a family, or I have
Right.
things in my personal life that if I'm unavailable, I will, maybe try and shoot you a quick text to say, hey, I'm unavailable, but as soon as I am, I'll get back to you. Now, if it's urgent, obviously that's
Yeah.
different. But I think people get in the habit of thinking we have to be on all the time and you have to
Yeah.
immediately respond. And that isn't possible all the time. It just can't be. And when we expect ourselves to be, and we expect other people to be, it just is a recipe for disaster. And eventually it
Right.
will catch up to us, and clients will end up running your life, and your business will run you. You won't be running your business.
And also what I've found while I was doing that first, because I think a lot of times maybe you don't set out to do that, but what happens is the next person's doing it.
Yep.
So you feel like, oh well, they're gonna go work with the next person, so I better be available. But what happens is those people that kind of don't respect those boundaries, they're actually the worst people to work with, because it's never enough,
Of course.
you
And
know.
people
Yeah.
too that are pushing the narrative a lot of the times of work with me. I'm will always be available. I'm
Yeah.
available 24/7. But it's like, to combat that, I think we have to set things in place to make us still communicating and accessible to our clients and our partners without disrespecting our time, right? So, like,
Right.
for example, if you're done for the day, I would put on an out of office reply with next steps of, like, if this is urgent, right? Like, here are things you can do to get a hold of me right now.
Right.
If not, I will respond at this time. I've had agents go as far as putting on their voicemail. I respond to voicemails between 3 and 5 p.m. and 9 and 10 p.m., whatever it might be,
Yeah.
or 9 or 10 a.m. And it's setting those expectations for people. It's having things in place to kind of have your back, because
Yeah.
everyone will, if you have nothing and they're just kind of like sending an email and it's just sitting there and they're stewing, like, why aren't they responding? Or they sent a text, or, and then maybe
Right.
they're constantly trying to get a hold of you again. Those are small things people can do to just have a protection in place of, like, here is a response for the time being, right? And
Right.
then I will get back to you at a certain time. I, at one point, had in my notes on my phone, I had written out text replies. And so if I needed to just quickly send here's what
Right.
I'm doing, and I just would copy, paste, send. Now you might even be able to have an auto reply on the phone. I don't.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's like a lot of that stuff that you talk about, you can automate it. I mean, your email, you can have that thing turn on after a certain time, your message, you can have your phone do it.
Yep.
One of my friends, I'll text her and she's like, I'm driving now. I'll call you when I get there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
answer my phone. But yeah, it's like little things like that. And you know better than I do on this, but I would also think that there's a part of you that has to start it and then trust the process,
Yes,
because like
100%.
my husband's been in sales forever, and then he would tell, like, he works with clients, he does financial something or other, right? So like people would call him, like leads would call him,
Mhm.
and it would be like 7 o'clock. He was like, all right, so I have some time on my schedule, like Thursday and Friday from 10 to something. Even if he didn't, he
Yeah.
would just say that. And I would be like,
Mhm.
how about if they just call somebody else? He's like, nah, I trust the process. These are the times I can work on that, you know?
It is
And
owning
yeah,
your business. It's owning your schedule
right,
rather,
right.
because with leads coming in too, it obviously you want to secure the lead, but
Yeah,
secure the lead and then set something for a more in-depth time. And
right.
people will respect you for that. They will respect
Yeah,
your time. Obviously, we'll run into people that will try and push our boundaries, of course. And there are different scenarios, and every person we work with is different. But generally speaking, having processes like that in place that will provide a layer of like, this is how I operate my business, will just allow you to just control your schedule and your time better. Otherwise,
right.
it just can be a free for all. And I mean, it ends up being very stressful and you end up working a lot more, obviously.
Yeah, for people who don't, at the end of the day, those are the ones that don't really appreciate your time or service. I mean,
Right, right.
okay. So, I mean, this is no surprise, but a lot has changed in the real estate industry. You know, we had the lawsuit and then the settlement, and now there was an acceptance of the settlement, and
I
so
know.
there's all this stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, understandably has caused some fear and anxiety, like, you know, among agents at all levels. It's not just new agents. I've seen
Mhm.
people doing this forever.
Right.
So, what are some of the kind of simple things that agents can do to combat those feelings that are natural with all these changes?
Yeah, well, in general, in the industry, my biggest pieces of how to evolve with the industry, no matter what is going on, is communication and education.
Right.
So, communicating with your peers, with your business partners, with your managing broker, with your support system, these are all people that will be able to rally around you and work with you and help you get through to the next phase. And the education piece, our industry is so fluid. It is changing all the time and it always will. And it's down to the day, just to your point earlier, saying
Right.
you could have a great thing happen in one moment and the next moment a deal falls apart. I mean,
Right.
just how fluid it is. And so I've always had the mindset of being just as fluid as the industry. Because if I'm not and I get stuck in my ways, that's the first way that I will ruin my longevity in this industry. I've
Right.
seen people in this industry for 30 years that are like, well, no, this is how I've always done it, or they hate that technology is taking over. But when you kind of surrender and say, okay, I know I'm in an industry that there are tried and true methods that will always be what we use, but there's always going to be new things that come in. So
Yeah.
I'm going to keep myself on the education train, learning, growing, trying new things, and being open to that, being open to creative ideas. And that goes down to how you not only cope, but how you build your business, right? So
Right.
I mean, I think with the coping mechanisms, instead of having coping rooted in non-self-care activities or just the kind of mindless plug and play, right? Of here's how I'm
Right.
going to get through my day. I obviously encourage people to choose coping mechanisms that are rooted in self-care, and that is having the areas of self-care covered. And you'll always kind of be pouring into more one cup more than the other, but generally speaking, the physical, mental and emotional, um, social, like you were just saying, you that's a cup you like to fill, spiritual and
Right.
lifestyle.
Right.
These are proven areas of self-care that we need in our lives to thrive. So if I'm only pouring into physical or only pouring into social and I'm totally ignoring the rest, that isn't as well-rounded of a coping mechanism, right? So
Yeah.
I encourage people to say, okay, pick a few things and they can be small. I mean, the mental and emotional piece can be as small as a breathing exercise. Like for me, I am a huge advocate of breathing exercises. They can be done
Right.
anywhere at any time and they're like a minute long. And I found in my car going from showing to showings where we can go from maybe a really difficult client or experience or situation, and you find yourself driving to the next showing just stressed and you're like, okay, I got to get this out of my head because these clients are first time home buyers and they're so excited and they can't wait.
Right.
I don't want to bring this negative energy into this showing. So
Right.
I would either put on some good music to get me in a different headspace, or I would do a breathing exercise. And nowadays on the Apple Watch or on your phone or whatever, you can find a breathing exercise that will guide you through it and be done in a minute. And so that
Right.
physiologically changes your body and how you show up to those next people.
And
So
it kinda grounds you too. I think, like, like, my sisters does this anxiety stuff, and they'll, like, count they, like, put their feet on the floor or
mhm,
something, like, it's, like, to
yeah,
feel, steady yourself, whatever, and then it's, like, you just count upwards to 10 and count backwards,
mhm,
and it sounds so crazy when you just say it, but when you do it, I think the thing is, I'm like a highly emotional person. If I go into that appointment with a difficult seller and I leave,
yeah,
it's such a weight that all I can think about is I'm quitting real estate. I hate everybody,
yeah,
you know. But if you bring yourself back, you start to realize, okay, there's just one bad client with
right.
one bad day,
Yep.
and let it go. And it
Yep.
just kind of not shows you what's important, but it almost like brings you back down to earth,
It
right?
does. And we need that because we have so many things going on that even in that drive from the showing to the next showing, we could be trying to catch up on a phone call and then you're hearing other news from something else. And so it's like, take a minute, take 60
Right.
seconds to ground yourself, to do a breathing exercise, any of that. It can be done in the car in between showings. And so
Right.
that's just one example. I have the example of working out would be physical and
Right.
social. I stress uninterrupted time with family and friends.
Yeah.
Uninterrupted time. That social bucket can be filled in so many ways. It can be filled by going to a book club or a networking event or whatever it might be, but uninterrupted focused time with people that you care about and that care about you is crucial to fill that social bucket.
Right.
And the spiritual aspect is whatever that means to the person individually, prayer, meditation, whatever it might be. Lifestyle is, I like to pull this for lifestyle because it can be so many different things, but
Right.
finding a creative outlet is a really good way to fill that bucket. And a lot of people might be like, I'm not creative. Like, I don't have that bone in my body, but creativity means something different to everyone, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I obviously I'm a writer and writing is
Yeah.
an outlet for me. It helps kind of get the thoughts out of my head. I have done that my entire life. I had a journal from the time I was like 10 or 11. I have my
With the little locks.
I'm not kidding. I have my life documented up until like
I
through
love that.
college almost. And I'm
I
like,
love that.
that was a form of therapy. That is a creative outlet, but also it is a therapeutic outlet. So
Right.
if some people like to paint or do, it doesn't even have to be an art. It can be planting. It could be anything.
Exactly. Just like a passion project. I think also, like, in real estate, we're usually entrepreneurial minded people,
Mhm.
and just starting, like, for me, I'm not, like, creative in the way of, like, crafty, but I'm always, like, wanting to, like, "Ooh, let me start a new business, and let me" even if it never
Yeah.
comes to fruition, I'm just like, "Let me see if the URL is available." I'm, like, crazy like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever just makes you happy,
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, I love that. So, like, how can how can someone start, if they're watching this and they're like, she's right. I need to start incorporating some kind of
Mhm.
something needs to change basically, right? Like what are some where can they start? Where are some simple things you could recommend to identify those things and put them into practice?
Yeah, I will give the simplest steps because I think it should be very simple to start. And kind of going back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago is run your time and run your business. Don't let it run you. So I think once you can get these simple strategies into place, then you can fill in your time and time block because I'm a huge advocate of time blocking. We do talk about it a lot in the industry. And over the years, people will talk about like, make sure to time block breaks in or, time block in a workout or whatever it might be. But use your calendar however you need, however you see fit. But the first real step that I always tell people to take is to you have identify your burnout triggers. You have to know what even stresses you out because what stresses you out might not stress me out, right? So
Right, right.
if we have a bad deal or a tough client, that may not bother someone at all.
Yeah.
But the next agent might carry that with them, like we're talking about. So
Yeah.
identify the burnout triggers. Take a minute, take a notepad, write it down like, okay, these are the things that really seem to set me off and make me stressed. And I carry that with me. If you don't know what they are, I would say pay attention as the next week goes on and note them as you go through the week. Be more in tune with yourself because I think what happens a lot in this industry is we lose our ability, in a sense, to tap into ourselves and our emotion. And it's important to know when you're getting triggered, something is setting you off to that stress level. And if we can't capture it, we can't fix it. Right. So, I would say take a minute to identify the burnout triggers. Then, once you have those identified, write down your wellness needs. So, those wellness needs are going to be anything that will help combat those stressors for you. So, like for me, an example I would give is if I don't take enough breaks in the day, I actually have a really hard time turning my mind off. I've been this way forever. I have a creative mind. I am like you, like, what
Me.
can I do, to develop this and build that? And it's like,
Right.
it's exciting and I love that. However, it's so hard to turn my mind off. So if I don't take breaks during the day at all, if I don't even just stop for a minute and stop working, I have a hard time sleeping. I will fall into insomnia habits. And it's like, well, that is just depleting me, right? So, how can I combat that? I'm going to be aware of taking breaks and I'm going to, even if I have to time block those in to my schedule, I will do a 5-minute break each hour or whatever it is, like something to just stop my brain and stop
Right.
from working and then going back because that only I mean it helps you of course combat the stress but then it also helps your productivity levels because if we're staring at a screen
Right.
8 to 10 to 12 hours a day whether it's the phone screen or the computer screen that
Mhm.
is depleting and we won't be as on top of our work that needs to be done. So I would say take those burnout triggers, write down your wellness needs that you need for those triggers, and of course, set realistic expectations. Don't start big, start small, and go from there and adjust as you see fit. But then again, we're talking about the screen, set screen time limits on your phone and your computer. We really need to be cognizant in the world that we live in today that screens are depleting. They deplete our energy. And so we have to try and limit that in whatever way we can. Um,
Right.
I would say some other strategies are we've kind of hit on is the auto responses on your email and your text. I also use the pin feature on my iPhone. So I pin text messages. So if I can't get to a text when it comes in, I'll just pin it to the top and it sits there
Oh,
until I respond to it and then I can bring it back
that's a
down.
good one.
Yeah, that one is
I
game.
love that.
It truly is. It's like it also takes the guilt away from not being like, okay,
Respond. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, I'm setting this as a to do to get to, right? And you can even
Right.
send an auto response if you need to right then and there, or just a quick, I'll get back to you shortly, pin it. And then that's a way to stay on task. And then, of course, the do not disturb feature on the phone. I, you
That's my favorite.
have to have that. Yeah.
My favorite.
If you're not
For
using it,
me.
what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel very like, oh my gosh, and not just with work stuff, but even with like family, like with friends. I'm like, oh God, I need to like respond as soon as it comes. And I'm like, even during the workday, whatever, I'm like, I'm setting do not disturb, or else I know that I get distracted
Yeah.
very easily. And
Mhm.
I'll pick it up to respond. And then before you know it, I'm on TikTok looking at Christmas cocktail recipes. It's like,
Exactly. You're
and
like,
I'm
how did I get here? And what was I doing? Yeah.
exactly. So do not disturb is the best, and it kind of notifies people that that you are on do not disturb. And there's ways to, like, if you're in the middle of like a particularly demanding transaction,
Mhm.
there are ways to put it so on an Apple anyway. There are ways to make it so that, like, if you're calling, if Brittany's calling, her call can come through, right?
Yep.
If anyone else is calling, no.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's a
To
great thing.
truly master those features because they're there to help us. They are
Right,
there to make us more productive, one, when we need to be, because there are times we need to be productive, there are times we need to rest, and it all feeds each other. So I would say learn those features, master your calendar, master the pin features, the auto responses, the do not disturb. And truly, I'm a big advocate also of accountability partners. And whether that's another agent, it could be your managing broker in your office, it could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it doesn't matter. It's if you have someone who understands your goals, understands what you are trying to do, set that accountability partner up with you and say, hey, what do you want to do? And here's what I want to do. And let's hold each other accountable to this. And if I'm choosing to do a 30-minute walk every day, maybe I'll send a quick message like, walk done or something, whatever it is.
right,
It helps you stay on task and it helps you hold yourself accountable as well, of course, to feed into your self-care. And
right,
honestly, all of this, those are like the simplest form of tools and strategies that you can get started with, but it's to build yourself that burnout prevention plan that I believe it should be done with your business plan every year. When
right,
and I know some agents don't even do business plans, and I would say that's your first mistake. Do a business plan. It is
right,
really important to know your business, know your numbers, know your goals, know what you did last year so that you can keep growing. I documented everything as a full-time agent. It didn't matter if my company was documenting it for me. I had my own spreadsheets. I knew my business like the back of my hand. And that then led into, okay, how am I going to, if this is my goals for the year, how am I going to keep myself sane as as I'm scaling,
right.
doing this
Yeah,
business? So here's my burnout prevention plan. These are the self-care things that I'm going to try and focus on. I might have a yearly goal. These are my quarterly goals because reality is some self-care is daily. Some of it
yeah,
is weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And we if we start at that kind of burnout prevention plan and drill down into our daily life, you'll have a better idea of how to weave this in, how to make it a part of your business and a part of your life. And then it'll be second nature before you know it. And you can then adjust it. Like I would look at my business plan every quarter, and
yeah,
as I adjusted my business plan, because I'm like, okay, if this marketing strategy was working for me, I'm going to keep doing it, but it is not doing anything for me. So let me adjust this marketing piece and I'll try this for
right,
the next quarter. Well, if this wellness piece is not working for you and you're still extremely stressed, add something else in or change that, adjust it. It should flow with your business. And so those
right.
simple strategies are just a starting point of building that burnout prevention plan.
Absolutely. And someone said, I love the idea of scheduling in self-care that helps those of us who live and die by our calendar, right? But
Right.
but I've said this before, like in other shows and with other aspects of real estate, like one thing I noticed about real estate is that a lot of agents are building a job or creating a job for themselves instead of building a business,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, because we've seen people operating in this 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm like, you shouldn't still be stressed about going on showings anymore.
Right. Right.
So, how do you have you even seen that as a method of self-care? Like maybe if a agent is producing at a high level, but they're like, oh God, the marketing stuff really drives me crazy. Let me delegate or keeping up with my tasks. Is
Yeah.
that like another method of wellness?
100%. So
Yeah.
I have worked with very high producing agents. When I was in agent development, one of the pieces that I specifically did with some really high volume producers was getting them to understand that delegating is a form of self care. It's a form of
Right.
respect for yourself and your business and your family. And
Right.
it's also going to ultimately help you do more. So,
Make more money.
right, it's like
Almost
you're so
always.
afraid to let go of that piece. Well, one, what if you hate doing that piece? And
I
and
know.
then people are afraid of like, well, if I can't, and I understand like some people maybe like I can't afford to bring someone on, or I'm afraid to do that. I
Right.
don't know how that's gonna go.
Mhm.
But there are ways to plan for that and to actually sit down because this is where a business plan comes in.
I was just gonna say,
Speaking as
bring
a business
yeah,
person and a business mind, this is how businesses scale. And if you don't sit down and figure out new methods and take a risk to take steps ahead, you're going to find yourself spinning your wheels down the line and, yeah, continuing to be stressed over things that really shouldn't be anymore. So
right,
I
right.
100% believe that that is
The
a form of self
big
care.
missing piece, I think. Yeah, I'm like, guys, you need an assistant. Okay, so tell us a little bit about Beyond the Sale since we're on this topic.
Yeah,
Um,
this is the my passion project to build wellness into the industry. I mean, it's not talked about enough, if at all. Again, over time, people try to talk about it. But what I found is it's a lot of just, work out or take a walk, which is great. That's of
yeah,
course we need that, but it's deeper than that. It is business based and it is actually a part of a business plan. So
right.
Beyond the Sale was born out of my burnout. It was one of the biggest years I had had in sales, and I was so depleted. My body just really gave up, and I got really sick, and
Oh,
I almost left the industry. I was like,
right.
I need a retreat. I need something. And of course, I could find a retreat anywhere, but I felt like I wanted to connect with people in the industry because they knew what I was going through. Everyone that has been in this industry can feel those stresses and struggles because it's so specific to our industry. And so I ended up going on vacation and just sat in the sun and let myself be for a
Yeah,
minute. And kind of like you, which it's funny that you said your form of self-care is like building a business. And I was like,
right.
I'm gonna do this. I can't
Yeah,
find a retreat, so I'm gonna make it. And so
yeah, I love
then
that.
I started putting together wellness and real estate conferences for agents to come in and hear from experts because I am not a therapist. I am not a
Yeah,
doctor. I am not a mental health expert, but I have lived and gotten myself out of burnout, and
right.
I know what it takes. I know how grueling it can be. I mean, it took me years to reverse those health effects. And I don't want to see anyone else go through it because I see the faces of agents who are depleted. And I just want to say you can prevent this. You can get out of this. And it doesn't have to be this way. This is a great industry. As hard as it can
Right.
be, we're all here because we love it. And so um I developed Beyond the Sale to bring these resources to agents, and so that they had somewhere to go to say, okay, where do I start? How do I build self-care in? What is a burnout prevention plan? And what do I do? What do I even do about that? So that was really my goal, was to help people understand this, because I've gone to different associations and I've spoken to their agents, and afterwards people have come up and said, wow, I didn't even know what I was experiencing was burnout until you said that.
Yeah,
You're
because you
like,
just learn to, like, operate in it.
yeah,
It's just and then you're surrounded by people all the time who being stressed is like a lifestyle.
it
You know what I mean? It's
people end
like
up thriving in chaos. And then
right, right.
one of the little phrases I like to use is going from chaos to calm, because the
Yeah,
reality is we do operate in chaos a lot of times in this industry, but it can also be calm, and we need to be able to be comfortable in that calmness to
yeah,
operate in the best way that we know how, and for our clients. It's in the client's best interest.
right.
So
And I would think, if you put those things like any good business plan like you talk about, I would think if you just put those things into play, you may have a little adjusting period, but over time,
Mhm.
you're gonna you're gonna make more money, but you're gonna be a little less stressed. But
I'm
yes.
telling you, when I started controlling my calendar and my day and having strategies, because I live by my calendar. I truly
Yeah.
do. It's not popping up in my face to remind me.
Yeah. I
I
know.
will get absorbed in what I'm doing. And so
Right.
um I found that my productivity it increases when I take time for myself. So
Right.
I believe that to be true for anyone. If you take time to step away and to find that calmness, to just ground yourself again, to feed into other areas of your life, your business is
Mhm.
going to excel.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to make it like a gendered thing, but I know it's like as women, a lot of times by nature, we put ourselves a little bit on the back burner
Mhm.
in any area of life. You know what I mean? Work, motherhood, friends or whatever.
Mhm.
And I've noticed just for me, I mean, now I'm in my 40s, so like the older you get, you care a little bit less about, but because I would have never done this in my 30s. But now that this age, like this is such a stupid thing, but you'll get it. I love oysters.
Yeah.
So, like, I freaking love oysters. No one in my family loves oysters. People aren't even a seafood thing. And
Mhm.
there's this place, a restaurant by my house where they have oyster happy hour. But whenever I mention it, everyone's like, oh, well, why don't we get Mexican?
Yeah.
So I'll just like literally put it in there.
Mhm.
This Friday, I'm going there at 2 o'clock. I'm going to get my oyster happy hour.
Huh.
It makes me happy, you know what I mean? And then it's just exactly what you said. I feel like it makes me a better mom or whatever because something in me has been filled,
Yeah.
even though it's just $1.50 oysters, but it's
So
just
true.
little things, right?
It's the little things, truly. And I know a lot of working moms in the industry have a hard time saying, okay, I'm pouring into my kids and my family. I don't have time for me. And
Right.
I am not a mother, so I can't obviously say, yeah, you can fit 5 minutes in. But the
Yeah.
reality is, any of us can find time to carve out a little bit
Right.
of time to just, whether it being oyster happy hour or a sip of your coffee for 2 minutes, like
Right.
set a timer if you have to. Just
Yeah.
do something to take a minute for yourself. And it will actually turn things around in your attitude, in your mood, in how you show up for people.
Yeah.
I find we do, I've had women's groups with Beyond the Sale and Wellness in real estate, because I know how specific that can be. And what's interesting that I found with men in this industry and just through this process is that they actually have something different than us, where like and I don't want to speak for men, but like
Yeah.
in my experience with men telling me, like lenders that have been a part of these conversations, and
Yeah.
that they've had to actively be okay with saying, like, oh yeah, I do need that too. Like there was a
Right.
lender that came up to me at an event I was at and said, wellness in real estate, there's no such thing. And I was like, you're part of the problem. It's like
Yeah.
that thought process is part of the problem. There is such a thing. And then he kind of was like, you're right. Hang on a second. I could use this too. And it's almost like admitting to yourself. Like it's okay to admit that. It's okay
Yeah.
to say that, you know what, I do need a break too. We can't all be workhorses all the time.
No, no, you can't be on. No one can be on all the time, and that's been, the one good thing that came out of COVID was I think it forced people back
Yeah.
for a second, and then, I mean, sadly, mental health issues rose during that time, but I think also it just increased the conversation of like
Mhm.
what's important, what's not important. People that refuse to go work in an office anymore, because they
Right.
want those things, and I love what you're doing because the more that you do it, the more that you change 1, 2, 5 people around you, they go and change the realtors around them, and then over time, the industry will improve.
That
So,
is my goal. I
I
I
love
hope to just make a difference in the industry because it's the industry I love and I've committed my career to and I've learned so much from. And so yeah, it's kind of my way of helping improve it and evolve it.
right, I love that. Okay, one of the I just wanna tap onto this real quick when we're talking about, how things are changing, right? So, right now inventory is so low, people are
Yeah.
making less or whatever. And of course, income, we
Mhm.
need our income to survive,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, what are some of the ways that they can like diversify their income just to make it not as stressful?
Yeah. So kind of going back to being as fluid as the industry is and finding creative ways to help your business be that fluid.
Yeah.
Um, I think we have to get creative in how we build business for or get drum up more business, right? Like how
Yeah.
are we building our business in tough times? And I actually just wrote an article for the close about off market properties and how to find off market properties because this is a way to drum up more business in times that are tough. And
Right.
when your clients are frustrated and you're like, okay, I'm not finding anything for them and inventory is so low. Like, what am I going to do? There are hidden pockets of places and inventory that we can pull from. And that that would just be like another area that agents can say, okay, I'm getting creative. I actually in the article, I use the phrase off the grid. I'm going to go
Yeah.
off grid, off script here. I'm going to
Right.
try and see what I can find and outside of our tried and true methods for off market properties, because those are like door knocking and tapping into your agent network and cold calling and
Yeah.
driving for dollars, and all of those things are tried and true methods and they work, and they are proven and tested, right? So we can still do those, but getting creative in partnering with other people, whether it's home builders or it is banks and credit unions, it would maybe be like a specialized attorney, and that could be, the big moments
Divorce.
in life,
Right.
divorce, marriage, and death, and
Yeah.
it's something that is specialized and it is their life changes that cause people to need the support of a real estate agent. So I think if we can get creative in finding partners in other ways, then that's when we start to tap into those off market properties. And it feeds back into our business. It shows our clients that we're willing to go the extra mile and work for their best interest. And obviously, for us, it's a way to keep building our business when the market changes, because those of us that can shift with the market and change and get creative, that is a trait to have that helps relieve some stress. Because if you don't know how to shift, the stress feels like a burden, right? And you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get business. But if you can teach yourself and train yourself how to shift and get creative and drum up business with off market properties, your stress will automatically be less because you're more fluid, right? So
Yeah.
just kind of all feeds itself, really.
And it gives you some semblance of control, like, when there's no inventory and you have these buyers, you feel like you're like up against a wall. You know what I mean? So I love that. And we'll share the article here in the comments and in the show notes. But having that, it just kind of allows you a little bit more control over what's going on instead of like sitting
Yes.
there waiting on something to populate on the MLS.
Exactly,
But
and it's kind of like back to taking control of your business, not letting it
yeah,
control you. It is
yes.
saying, "Okay, this is what I'm doing to keep my business going."
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love that. I can't wait to I haven't read it yet, but I will, and you guys better check it out. Okay. So I'm so sorry. I'm so interested. Your coffee's probably cold now. But real quick, what do you think, the real estate industry and all this is gonna look like 10 years from now? What do you should I say you hope it looks like?
Yeah, it's funny, I do think about the industry in the future, and I kind of always have, like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm not an analyst, but I like to follow analysts, and I like to
Right.
look at that kinda stuff. I mean, I'm not predicting in that way, but just
Yeah.
obviously, I believe the industry is always going to ebb and flow. We're always gonna see seller market, buyer markets, low inventory, a lot of inventory. I mean, we will always see those changes, interest rates changes, and all of that stuff. It will always evolve. We're going to see more tech come into our business. We really have seen a lot over the past 10 years. I mean, the industry in 12 years that I've been in it has changed so much that it's just a different industry now, and business operates differently.
Right.
There that being said, I believe that brick and mortar is going to be a thing of the past. I don't think it's going to go away completely, but I we're already seeing it. There's less and less brick and mortar, you know,
Mhm.
brokerages and agents. The modern agent wants to be in the field, work from anywhere. They want to meet clients in the field, and it has its pros and cons. When I was
Yeah.
early on in my career, I learned so much by being in the office. I mean, I learned from agents that had built their business and they were top producers and allowed me to pick their brain. And I just felt like I got so much out of that that it's
Yeah.
bittersweet seeing the
It's
office setting
changed so much.
change because it really
Right.
has. And I know it's different in every market and different states and communities and things
Right.
like that. But generally speaking, it's changed a lot. And I honestly believe it's going to continue changing because agents that are running around in the field today, they want to be a little more creative and doing videos and all that stuff that allows them to be
Yeah.
more outside of the office.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, what I hope for and the biggest thing in this industry is I hope that the American dream of homeownership is still alive and well. I hope that people are excited about it again. There's such a heaviness around it right now, and you see people these memes, and I have younger siblings sending
Right.
these memes that it's just like they're funny and they're true, but
They
it's
count themselves out
they do
already. That's what I've been
all
seeing.
about like how the being a homeowner is impossible. And I I hope that people find that little bit of hope to get that American dream,
Yeah.
fulfilled
Get
with.
their piece.
Yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And same. I'm like, there's still plenty of opportunity, but it just like you said, like it's up to the realtor to
to
educate and tell people,
yeah,
hey, you're now out of the game.
yeah,
There are programs, there's this, there's that.
mhm.
So all right, perfect. Well, guys, obviously Brittany is a wealth of information and light, and I feel better already.
Oh,
So
thank you.
follow her at Beyond the Sale. And then where can they follow the clothes? What's the
Yeah,
Instagram?
it's theclothes.com, and
Okay,
yeah,
literally spell it all out. That's I knew it was something.
mhm.
Okay. Follow the clothes.com. We'll put it in the show notes. And then we will put also your article
Thank you.
about diversifying your income and off-market properties and all that. And all right, let me get to rapid fire. So coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, girl, same. Mountains or beach?
Ooh, beach, but I love both.
Oh, I'm scared of the mountains. Um,
They're beautiful.
I know to look at. It's just being in them.
True, I'm more to look at too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm, like, climbing mountains, but
No, 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 like in the cabins and no.
Yeah.
bugs. Huh.
Right.
Um, and summer or winter?
Summer.
Girl,
I
same. We're
love
best friends
Christmas
already.
and I love the holidays, but I
But
could do
that's
it in
all.
Chicago. I could do without the snow.
Oh, I
No
know. God, I wouldn't last. I would not last anymore. Okay, and then Netflix or podcasts?
Ooh, I'm not a big TV person. So I love Netflix and I love a good show.
Yeah,
Um, but I guess I would have to say podcasts.
I'm a podcast girly too.
Yeah.
So we match on all four
Yeah.
levels. We're a
Yeah.
match. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. Like seriously, thank you for kind of being kind of like the leader in this. It's
Thank you.
it's so important. So, all right. Well, I hope you have the best day and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.